It makes up 70% of your body. Without it, life is not sustainable. It has been integral in fostering the global economy. It is free and priceless at the same time. Water. Yet despite how incredibly precious it is to us, we do an even more incredibly poor job of maintaining it. Water nurtures the entire world, which in turn nurtures us in almost every facet of our existence. Almost all major cities in the world were developed from the capacity of ports and the water trade. Urbanization and industrialization have created ways in which we are now destroying the supply's purity by contaminating it and polluting it. It is incredibly important that we do not destroy the delicate balance of the natural ecosystem water has in these cities. The function of water system has changed over time, as cities dynamically developed and they are more tourism-centered and used for aesthetic appeal than for industrial purposes. Unfortunately, however, there's leftover surface pollution of discarded debris and litter, and that is still having severe ecological impacts today. How can we keep the water clean as more and more countries become industrialized and perhaps enter the same vicious cycle of contaminating water, which we've seen has many deleterious side effects? If there was an economically efficient way in which we could safely manage all of the debris, it would be possible to slow down the damage and reverse some of it. Floating debris poses danger and is a threat to animals and boats traversing the water. A major killer of fish and birds, as well as an eyesore in these ecosystems, is floating plastic and debris that they eat because they can no longer find food, since the washed-up trash often kills aquatic life and makes the water habits conditions virtually unlivable. Governments and cities I have seen river cleanup attempts, and they have some effect, but in the end they all seem pretty futile against the increasing waves of debris that float in from littering and natural disasters and other extenuating circumstances. Hurricane Sandy caused sewage overflows in Jersey and New York, spewing contents and debris all up along the East Coast. The coastal regions are the ones most affected, as this is where everything will wash up to eventually. The system that I'm going to propose could alleviate these problems with almost immediate effects. The system I'm proposing is an open source type of a semi-submersible drone system of water skimmers that patrol the surface of water and collect content and debris. What makes an open source and autonomous system such as this so efficacious is that it is a very low cost. Instead of having individual skimmers that work independently, the brains of a system will be housed off-site, making the individual drones cheaper, fashioned in a modular style with replaceable parts. Using wireless sensing capabilities, all of them are controlled by unison by one central network. This would allow real-time control and integration of the newest available data, and also makes the management much simpler. This is the added bonus of continuously being able to take water quality data, which will then be made available to Earth scientists, who can then turn use this to advise on policies for water quality. Like apps in your phone that get updated periodically, these systems can be updated wirelessly without a change in hardware, which is a major problem in updating any type of digital infrastructure. Finally, cast away trash in the shore will no longer pollute the environment around our cities and allow for gentrification. I believe that through this program, everyone benefits. It creates jobs, promotes science and technological development, and most importantly, helps nurture the most important resources as people we have. By showing what's possible, we can really attempt to ameliorate the situation. These concerns, because the task seems so challenging and unyielding. However, I believe the current technology could seriously take on the challenge for the first time ever. Using technology already available for free, the low-cost open source system can be implemented in many cities across the globe, and not just major cities, but in places like rural India, where riverways are used by scores of people for cleaning and bathing purposes as well. Since the technology is already out there, with the meteorological data and basic engineering, scores of relatively simple semi-submersible drones can be used to patrol waterways and collect the floating trash. Although it may seem like a futuristic concept, it really is not. The system we employ is to take advantage of openly available topography data from places like Google Earth and NOAA. And we already have rovers on Mars and satellites in space and submarines in the bottom of the ocean. We can fix this problem. Yes, staple is a lot more.
Hello, my name is Neil Malgar. I had a chance to go to India this past December break and meet a girl about 8 years old who was left in the back of a cab by her parents because she had a physical disability. She was just one of the many disabled orphans I had a chance to interact with during my time in India. I met them all at the only hostel for mentally and physically disabled orphans in the area I was staying in. This hostel houses around 200 orphans, feeds them, and educates them from birth to age 19. However, they only run on a few volunteers. Of these few volunteers, there are 4 teachers who educate the children in a large hall. The extent to which this hostel and others like it have the capacity to teach these children is basic reading, writing, algebra, stuff like that. What happens to these kids when they require more advanced or particular education and training in order to enter the real world and get a job? A lot of these kids, after leaving, aren't able to find a job or acquire the knowledge necessary to do so. There's a severe lack of resources available for orphaned and estranged kids to learn what is necessary for them to be able to live independently. I've personally seen the potential these kids have. They're driven and very intelligent, and their disabilities do not hold them back. Given the proper resources, they can join practically any industry and make contributions to it that any of us could. Local businesses in an area are always looking for more people who can work. There are many jobs that the mentally and physically disabled children that I saw can be filled with, that are currently filled with people who are overqualified for it. This happens for a number of reasons, one being discrimination against the disabled, another being lack of advanced training or education for disabled orphans, or simply a lack of knowledge of where to look to find these opportunities or the inability to make contact with such businesses. The girl I told you about in the beginning had a physical disability. She wasn't able to walk properly and had to use crutches to move around, but she had a very bright mind and was very quick. She was one of the best writers among her classmates. Granted, some of them had mental disabilities, but if she gets the proper training, she could work practically any job she wants. My job is to help her and other disabled orphans lead stable lives after shelters or orphanages or hostels can no longer house them. Stage 1 of my idea is to form a partnership with these hostels to provide them with technological resources that can be acquired for very little cost. Take a Raspberry Pi, for instance. For $25, you can buy an entire computer that is more than enough for learning purposes. With this computer, kids can follow tracks of specialization that teach them how to do certain tasks by job type, the skills they need to join any industry, and much more. Stage 2 of my idea is to form relationships with businesses near the hostels as well as companies and other organizations that hire for the job tracks we provide training for. I can then link the hostels and the businesses to form a network through which disabled orphans can acquire the skills for the job that interest them and subsequently find the job. It's not hard to make this a reality. During my short time in India, even as I walked around outside past the hundreds of small shops on each road, I observed the jobs people were doing. I also had a chance to speak to a few people who ran such shops, organizations, and businesses. A lot of the people who were working there were doing jobs that these kids that I met could do. This network needs to become a reality, and it has the ability to benefit everyone in society by generating more specialized workers, as well as providing those who are ostracized from society and their parents an opportunity to lead strong and independent lives. Thank you.
3:35. Are you ready?
Good morning, my name is Chanler and I'm a student at Johns Hopkins University. If I gave one of you my transcript today, do you think you could read it? I mean, you might think that's a dumb question, but I assume all of you could. You're all smart, bright students. But if instead of doing this here, I did it at an elementary school in the Baltimore City school system, there could be a very high chance that you would not be able to read it. According to the 2012 Maryland School Assessment, 34.5% of third graders are reading below grade level, a figure that is double the state average. Now, illiteracy in third graders may not seem to be such a pressing issue because they're not studying for the SATs or trying to pass a high school English class, but this problem has latched onto the city's educational system and they continue to struggle with it. Although improvements have been made, there's definitely more room for improvement, and in order to truly solve this problem, we need to attack it more aggressively at its point of origin, which is the elementary school level. Now, I was a child once, and by no means was I excited to have to start reading books in third grade. I doubt any of you were. But at some point, my parents and teachers instilled in me the importance and necessity of reading. The problem is not a lack of books or teachers or resources, but instead of lack of inspiration and motivation. 84.1% of students in Baltimore City school systems come from low-income families, and only 68% of residents 25 years and older have high school diplomas. Most 8 and 9-year-olds struggling to learn how to read cannot truly comprehend the impact of their struggles. Just think back to when you were a kid, when you were 8 or 9 years old. Now imagine that 1 or 2 of your parents cannot read. If you are struggling to read, then how, outside of the classroom, would you improve your struggles? A tutor for a 3rd grader and for a low-income family seems pretty absurd. Now, the young age of the student can seriously hide the implications of illiteracy. 1 in 6 children who are not reading proficiently in 3rd grade do not graduate from high school on time. We cannot deny the fact that illiteracy plays a major role in the cycle of poverty that plagues the Baltimore area. However, in much of the surrounding suburbs, we can find some of the best private and public schools in the country. I attended a private boarding school in Connecticut, and my middle and elementary school years were spent in the school system in my upper middle class town. Illiteracy has always been foreign to me. It has never directly affected my life. However, in high school, my lacrosse team ran a clinic every year for the East Harlem School in New York City. High school players who were still students of the game became the teachers for a day. A very interesting experience, and it was quite eye-opening. Now, by no means is lacrosse a big sport in Harlem, nor in New York City, but the kids truly enjoyed playing, and they were learning and improving drill by drill. Each year I would remember more and more faces, the same kids coming back every year, and one kid from the previous year, who may not have known how to hold the stick or how to cradle or how to pass, was sprinting up and down the field, drill to drill, the next year, and truly showing improvement. Now, it amazed me how much hands-on teaching can encourage learning in children. To conceptualize my idea for a solution, I want to utilize this model of high school students teaching elementary school students because I have witnessed firsthand the success it can have. I want to infuse the game of lacrosse, a staple of the Baltimore area, as a mechanism to battle illiteracy. My proposal will be to create a unique after-school program for elementary school students from low-income families in the Baltimore City school system that would essentially be run by high school students from Baltimore County, private and public school students. The program would have 3 distinct goals: reading, lacrosse, and community service. This program would combine education and recreation while still giving back to the community in a variety of ways. The game of lacrosse will foster the development of relationships between the high school students and the elementary school students that will in turn create a conducive environment to begin to challenge this issue of illiteracy. Thank you.